Welcome back to the DaliTalks podcast. Today, I'm really excited to have a guest. This is not only just a guest, but this is my virtual assistant who has made the DaliTalk podcast a lot more fun because she's doing the work that I don't really enjoy, and she's so good at it. So when you see the show notes and the thumbnails, this is who is behind the scenes doing all this. But I want you to meet her because she is a virtual assistant that lives in Uganda. And when I asked her to come on to the show to talk about how she got into virtual assistant work and to educate us about Uganda, she happily agreed. So her name is Joy Aliba. And welcome to the show, Joy.
Thanks, Dali. Thanks for having me. I'm excited today. I'm a guest.
Yeah, it must feel weird to be on the other side, right?
It's weird, and how I'm going to edit it also.
Editing your own video, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So give us a little background about, how you grew up and ended up becoming a virtual assistant.
So I think it was like in 2019 after we had graduated campus. I graduated around October 2019. I was very, I don't know how to say, blessed. I got a job immediately at a tech firm. I was doing their social media management and stuff like that. And then I was minding my business on Facebook and just turned on my Facebook job notifications. And I got an alert for like jobs. And I was like, okay, let me also turn on the job notifications. So I didn't quite like my job at the tech firm because in social media, they weren't giving me anything to work with. They would give me apps. I launched the apps. They launched the apps, and after that, they don't tell me about the launch. And then when is it appraisal, something like that? When they're like, hey, so let's see the work you've been doing. I'm like, okay, I don't have anything except codes and all these things. And if anybody knows anything about social media, that's not sustainable in the long run. So I wanted to do something different. And I saw a notification for this Facebook job that was in social media, and everything that was there I could do. And I said, let me just apply. I don't know what this is, but let me just apply for it. And when I applied for it, the lady got back to me. She's called Jocelyn Kopak. She had a digital marketing agency. She gets back to me. She talks to me about it. I have the interview Sunday evening. Yes, the Sunday evening, my time, which was like Sunday morning, her time. Very weird. And everybody's telling me, who has interviews on Sunday? That must be a scam job, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, let me just go. What is going to hurt me? It won't hurt me because I'm on the other side of the world. So it will just be my time. And what am I actually doing on Sunday? I'm seated. So I go to my workplace, sorry to my old employers. I went there, used their Wi-Fi, everything, sat in the office and had the interview. She was so nice. And I woke up Monday morning with an email saying, I've been selected and I'm going to be working these EST hours. And I was just screaming early in the morning. And that's how I started being, that's how I actually became a VA. But with time, it got overwhelming because I was working my 9 to 5 in Uganda. And then at 5 p.m. to midnight, I was doing my VA work. So I was, yes, I don't know how to explain exhaustion to you, but I was exhausted. And I did that for like 8 months.
Oh
8
my
months.
God.
Yes.
That's a long
8
time.
months. Because I was so scared, Dali. I was so scared. I'm like, I don't want to quit my job. I don't know anything about this VA space. I was so scared, but I'm very thankful to Jocelyn. She taught me everything I know. And when her company closed down, she had already shown me all the opportunities, and I'd grown so much. She taught me, basically trained me, and should even pay me during the training. It's something that's back home here you don't hear about in Uganda. It was my mom. She didn't believe me. And I think up to now, she thinks some people from the US are always sending me money. And I'm like, I'm working for them. And she's like, okay, okay. Yeah, so
Oh,
basically that's how I started. Yeah.
oh, wow. That is really funny. I can understand how family can be very skeptical and they ask the silliest questions sometimes because some of my family members sometimes ask, so do you get paid for doing the bullying education work? I'm like, yes, I do.
Yes. So especially for us here, remote work is something that is I don't know how to say. It's very unique, it's different, and it only made sense during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's when it only made sense. But I think just locally, you're remote locally, but international wise, I think if I'm to explain this to my grandma, she's gonna be like, what? Like, this is impossible. Yeah. So it just made sense recently, but it's something unique and it's good to see that most people are now accommodative to it. Yeah.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit because I'm curious about the education system in Uganda because you said you graduated and you immediately got a job at a tech firm. So
Yes.
is the school system there big on educating you in tech?
No. So in East Africa, we have the best education in East Africa because Uganda is part of East Africa, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, you name it. People from other countries normally travel to our country because we have the best education system here and stuff like that. So I went to school for mass communication.
Okay.
And I majored in public relations. And I always said, I'm going to be in one of those big PR firms, representing people, saying those big words like, no, we didn't steal the money, blah, 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 whatever you name it. And now I'm here as a VA. It's so crazy. So I always envisioned myself doing those things. But just like how you can do something, and just like a tech firm can have maybe a comms aspect that they want to manage. Now I was managing their social media, doing part of their PR. I was managing that particular aspect when I was hired. I went in as an intern and then later on got the position with time. Yeah.
I see. So what is it that makes the education system in Uganda so much better than all the other East African countries?
So I think it's because we are a predominantly English-speaking country.
Oh, okay.
We have so many languages and so many tribes. So one way for us to easily communicate is English. We were colonized by the British. We speak British English. So it's very easy for us. But in countries like Kenya, Kiswahili is their national language and stuff like that. So you can find people who don't know anything about English. But in Uganda, no matter even in the deepest parts of the area, you'll find someone speaking English. So I think it's our English speaking and everything else that makes it, yeah. And with time now, I think of recent, like right now, the model has changed. So those days it would just be class. But now they're incorporating things like arts and crafts, making sure that people can do things outside just pen and paper. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. I had no idea. I didn't know that English was so it's the main language you would say in Uganda?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It's like the major one predominantly spoken around because if I just move to another, we call them districts. If we move just to another district, whole different language. And if you cannot speak it, then you're doomed. So with English, it makes it easy.
So it just opens the door to so many more opportunities. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So generally speaking, do people who know that you are a VA, do they kind of devalue your job because they think it's like you're just sitting in the computer playing around? Or do they, do they grasp how intense it can be intellectually?
So my routine, I'll start with my routine to answer that question. So when I wake up in the morning, I go to the gym, and then I'm posting on my Instagram stories my updates. And my friends who have 9 to 5s, so those days they'll be like, what are you doing at the gym at 9? We are at work. And I'm like, I work EST time, and they didn't quite understand it and the aspect. And I said, okay, guys, I work at night. I work like from 3 to like midnight. And they're like, what? And I get to explain to them what I do. I feel like the millennials, they find it so cool. Very cool. They're like, oh my God, millennials, Gen Z, you name it. They're like, oh my God, this is so interesting. What? But the thing they always ask about is job security. And I said, I feel like just like any working relationship or any relationship, it's built on trust. Like I keep telling people, I wake up every morning and text Dali with like, I know she's going to reply with that sort of confidence. And when you don't reply me, I'm like, okay, maybe I'll try again the next day and stuff like that. So I feel like I tell them it's built on trust. And once you it's just like anything, once you get into the system, you get an understanding of how everything works, and it becomes easy to communicate, and that becomes your whole world. So the Gen Zs, the millennials, they find it so cool. People like my parents, they are so perplexed about it. They're always worried. Africans, I don't know about you guys culture-wise, but for us, girls our age, we're supposed to be married. Like when we at campus, they don't want you to say anything about a boyfriend, whatever, girlfriend. They're like, read your books. We want you to get this degree and stuff like that. And immediately after you have graduated, everyone is like, where's your husband? And I'm like, I thought we went to school for the books. So,
oh my God. Wait, so this is
yeah.
as you graduate from university, right? Or from high school?
Yes.
Okay, university.
From university, yes. Like you get your degree.
Right.
Yes, to get to the job market, the pressure.
Oh my God.
Yes, there's that meme, the pressure is getting worse. It gets worse.
So right now,
it's so serious. Yeah.
So right now how long ago did you graduate?
So I graduated in 2019. So at least time I speak to my mom, she's like, so what happens when you get a husband? Because you work at night. So how is this going to, I'm like, I'm like, we shall cross the bridge when we reach there. She's like, okay. So she cannot help but ask me that. So Gen Zs, millennials, they love it. They're like, oh my God, Joy, I have so many of my friends ask me all the time. And I send them to the groups. I tell them about Clubhouse, like how I met you. But for my uncles, aunties, my mom, they just be stressed about it. But they're like, thank God you're working. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, culturally, I kind of understand that for the Latino community, it's kind of the same, where the expectation is to marry. And I would say even some families, they wouldn't mind if the girl marries before graduating university.
Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, they wonder and like, wait a minute, everything's about, well, what's everything gonna work like when your husband, and my that didn't happen to me, but I always tell my friends who have gone through that, tell them you'll just find yourself a husband who's gonna be willing to work around that schedule.
Yes, that's what I said.
he's gotta have that same energy, but it's hard, I think, for older people in the family to understand that.
Yeah, it is.
So as far as the security for income wise for VAs,
yes,
what would you say is the biggest challenge to have that security?
So for me, whenever I get a new client, I just always pray. I'm like, I don't want them to see my Ugandanness. I need them to see that I can actually get the job done, because we have certain people, I'll hop on a call with them, and then I'd be like, because when I started out, I wanted to lie, because I'd be like, let me just say like I'm in the US. But I'm like, this is going to cost me so much. let's say you lie and then get a VA job that's locally, and then they're like, oh, we're having a meeting in Chicago. And I'm like, yeah, how do I get there?
Yeah.
So for me, I just always pray. I'm like, God, I don't want this person to see my Ugandanness. So I try, and I'm always looking at what international VAs are doing so I can match up. And my other challenge at the moment is just because we don't have PayPal. It's a hard thing in terms of payment and all those things. But if people are open to other alternatives, that definitely work, because I have people, relatives send me money from abroad to here in Uganda, then it makes everything easy. And security-wise, like, I think only one person has ever ghosted me, but the later on came back because I don't know, maybe they felt guilty. They came back after like 4 months, paid me all my money, and they were like, oh, sorry, I was going through a rough patch, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hey, it's okay. But for me, I always, the discovery call can actually tell if someone is excited to work with you. You can just read off energy and then be like, okay, so this person is not seeing me saying, oh, she's in Uganda, she's in Africa, she may not get the job done. I don't know about these people. Whatever the news is telling you, you're like, oh, all those biases and everything. So I always make sure that the person I'm working with, I'm comfortable with them, and I'm honest. I don't lie. I'm like, I'm in Uganda. That's like the first thing on the discovery call you get to know. Yeah. So we can build trust. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when you told me that, and I think I asked you, what time is it over there? Because
yes, that's the first question.
Because to me, I was like, I don't care where you are, as long as you can get the job done. And if I need to get a hold of you, I want to make sure that I can. And so I must say, I have not had a single problem. And I always tell, every time I refer somebody, they ask me where you're at, and I tell them Uganda, and then there's like a pause. And that's when I was like, but I've never had any problems communicating with her. She responds within the hour, really.
Yes.
And I know that 2 of them, maybe 3, have become your clients, and they're very happy when we get together.
Yes.
Hey, like, they're like, hey, Joy is amazing. I'm like, I know, she's phenomenal. And I actually just recommended you to this other guy. But he was like, oh, she sounds amazing, but does she speak Spanish? I'm like, no.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I actually was having a call with one of them, Amiti, and I said, I think I need to learn Spanish. At the rate that Dali's referring me, the next thing I need to learn Spanish, Spanglish, you name it, whatever it is.
Yeah. No, really. Maybe you actually should, because here in the United States, the fastest growing businesses are Latinas.
Oh, that's good.
Projected that it's going to continue to grow. So one of the things that I'm seeing is, and it has been happening for many years, is that all these huge firms are catering to the Latinx or Latino market. And it kind of bugs me, because they want our money and purchasing power. And I'm one of those that I'm like, well, I'm going to give my money to minorities because they need. Yeah. So that was another thing that I liked working with you, that you're a woman and you're in Africa. And I don't know, so far we had a really great experience working with you. And I like that you're very honest too, because, that's important. And the fact that you're here having this conversation with me to teach me about your culture and your country, I really appreciate it, because like I said before we started recording, one of the things that I want to focus on is, through this podcast, to bring more education that will debunk stereotypes, because they really are annoying and they contribute to the inequalities that we see in the world. So
yes.
Yeah. So with that said, I have some questions regarding
yes.
Yeah. I'm making it fun. So let's see, growing up, what are some of the common ways that kids entertain themselves, or are there any type of like special cultural things? For example, in Latinos, we have the quinceañera, which is a huge party, usually bigger than your wedding, to to celebrate your 15th birthday, because supposedly you're going into womanhood, although really you're not.
So for us back here home, culturally, I don't think there's anything that's so big in terms of like parties. But I know growing up, we used to play a couple of local games back home. Like something we call, I don't know how to say it in English, or is it even in English, but we call it bladder. We would kind of like put rubber and then skip over it and jump and all those things. And just playing around with, I think I've seen those circle games. People normally have like stones. So it's something that we tend to play a lot here, but the games that are predominantly played a lot, especially for the boys, is football. Football is a big thing.
And by football,
it's such a big thing.
It's soccer, right? Not like
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not American football. It's soccer. It's like Arsenal, Manchester United, blah, blah, blah. Right. So it's something that, I think it's because of the British and everything, we kind of adapted that sort of mannerism. So I'm not certain. So culture-wise, like if we have specific games, I know though, but in my tribe, I don't know any, but I know like in other tribes, I know they have those games that they normally still happen, because each tribe still has like traditional leaders, kings and stuff like that. Yeah, who we honor and give respect to, despite having the president.
Oh, that's kind of cool. So then, what about the hierarchy? Because sometimes you're taught as a child you have got to respect your elders, even if your elder is your sibling and they're only a year older than you. So do you have?
Yes, we definitely have it. So I feel like it's a thing that started in a particular tribe called the Uganda, where they literally kneel. Like, yes. Your eyes just lit up. Yes. So now, in terms of showing respect to, if I met my grandmother, there isn't any way that I will speak to her when I'm standing. No.
When you're standing?
I will be, yes, I cannot talk to her when I'm standing. Why? It's just, I don't know how to say it. I just find myself kneeling down. I'm like literally on my knees, and I'm just speaking to her from there and stuff like that. Then if I met my uncles and aunties, if we, let's say a party or something, especially when we go to the village, like where your parents were born, because most of them left the villages, moved to the cities and made a life. If we go to the village, culture is on a high. Culture is like at 100. We are kneeling, we are greeting everyone and stuff like that. So it's a thing about culture, and most times even when we have like traditional marriages and stuff like that, because we have the traditional marriages and the church weddings and stuff like that, most of us kneel. We kneel during our traditional weddings, we kneel for our husbands. So that's a thing here back home. And yes, if I met my grandfather on a train to the US, anywhere, you name it, even if we were at the airport, I would kneel down.
Wow.
And greet him, say hello, stuff like that. And then wait for him to like lift me up and be like, oh, it's okay, you can stand up and stuff like that. So yeah.
Oh, wow. Have you ever
have I ever what?
Like that, but amongst people who are not used to seeing that?
No, I've never actually. So, and actually for us here, if they got you kneeling, everyone's like, oh, this is just showing respect, and people move on. But most times if I travel outside Uganda, and like when I go to like Kenya to see my friends, and the Uber drivers be like, oh, so where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from Uganda. And they're like, oh my God, you're from that country where the women are so respectable, they kneel for their husbands. I'm like, yes. So it's like it becomes a whole fuss, because in East Africa, that's majorly what major of us do. So it started with one tribe, but then it spread out, And many people tend to do it right now, especially in terms of showing respect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's kind of cool in a way, because that's like the ultimate, act to show
Yes.
someone. I think it would just be weird for me to have to kneel to my husband, because that relationship is like, that's your best friend usually. So,
Yes, and I know how it's crazy, but on a traditional, okay, for us, like especially as millennials, I don't know if it's a thing that we do. I don't know. Some of my friends who are married, I know they're not kneeling for their husbands, because the kneeling culture or whatever it is, it's even taken things like, oh, he has come back from work, and you're like, oh, welcome back, and you kneel down and pick his bag, you name it. That's sort of respect. But when you're giving him lunch or supper or serving him, you kneel. But for millennials, as Gen Zs, I feel like it only happens during the cultural marriage. After that, we're like, oh, excuse me, please. Sorry.
yeah, that'd be me.
I know, no, that's you.
It's like,
Yeah. No, and you know the person so well, you're like, no, 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 you don't deserve this.
oh, I bet the elders are like, oh, these young people not following tradition.
Oh my God, yes, yes, so much. They get irritated, but yeah. Mm.
Okay, so you mentioned something interesting about there is the church wedding and then there's a traditional wedding. So what does a traditional wedding look like?
So a traditional wedding, right now, I'm in Kampala. It's the capital city of Uganda. If I was to get married, I wouldn't get married in Kampala. I wouldn't. My dad's like, no. We would go to my father's village in Soroti, where he comes from, and then have the traditional wedding in Soroti in his village there. And my husband or my fiancé who intends to marry me, him and his people, I don't care where they're coming from, even if they're coming from the US, they will have to come to my village, to my father's village, meet the elders and everything, and then have the traditional marriage from there. And then after having the traditional marriage, then that's how we go into the church wedding and everything. So it's not very mandatory because times have changed. However, 9 out of 10 times it happens.
Okay, so when you're getting married in the village, is the marriage like a day long? Because some traditions they have like a whole week, some and who shows up, who's invited, who's not allowed to be there, and are there certain customs, like special things that you do during the ceremony?
Yeah, it can be a bit overwhelming because if it's taken to the village, it's very hard not to invite other people.
Oh, I bet.
Because yeah, yes, because it is so hard to have gated communities and villages. Yeah, it's crazy. My parents stay in the city and our house is all gated. But then when we go to the village, your house is just there and your land is there and you're like, oh, it's okay. Nobody's gonna take. Yes. So if I'm to actually get married, if I look back at my sister's traditional weddings, I see people coming from other villages coming for my sister's introduction ceremony, their traditional weddings, and they are traveling and they're walking like early in the morning at 6 so that they're there like at 10,
Oh my God. So how do you, oh my gosh. So is this like people that you actually invite, or just people, like a unspoken rule that if you're from the surrounding villages, you're invited?
It's kind of like an unspoken rule, and there's almost, I don't know, there's almost nothing you cannot do about it. Because you are the one who decided to take your traditional wedding to the village. So you're not going to restrict people. You don't have a gated community. You can just set up the tent. So when they're setting up the tents, they'll set up the tents for the family, meaning my sisters, cousins, you name it, blah, blah, blah. And then my husband's family, whatever tent they'll come in and stuff like that. And then they will set up a tent for all the other villagers. So they'll give them space. We shall literally feed them. It's their party.
How do you plan for so much food?
Oh my God, I don't know even how to answer that. But okay, so in certain cases, it's a thing about saying, have the in-laws eaten? Because the in-laws are given much respect. So the in-laws are very much well catered for. And then for other people, like around the village and everybody else, we also put them into consideration. But I will say, I don't know if it's a bad or good thing, but the concern really isn't about them a lot. But however, they are served. So, but the truth of the matter is, you cannot feed all of them and they will not stop coming. So it just has to be a point and be like, oh guys, sorry, the meals are done, and we're like, oh, okay, cool, and stuff like that.
Food runs out, so they leave.
Yes, thank you. If food runs out, they leave. But if food never runs out, they will never leave your house. They'll never leave your compound and stuff like that. And after the traditional marriage, they come around the next morning because there can be gifts being given and stuff like that. It is such a major and big thing, but it's for me personally, just the thought about it gets me very stressed.
Oh, I can imagine. But it also sounds extremely exciting.
It is, especially with your friends coming and culture-wise. If you marry someone from the same culture, it's not very exciting. Maybe it's just like, oh, you know what's going to happen. But if you if you marry someone from a different tribe, it's just amazing to see how they experience it and how they accommodate it and stuff like that. And stuff. Yeah, but the whole experience is work because it's for parents, especially. The traditional wedding is basically for the mother. She's so proud. Yes. Oh, it's basically for the parents. They make a whole fuss about it because they're going back home, telling everyone, oh my God, look at my kids, they're getting married. So then the church wedding is when you can then restrict, and it normally happens in the city.
Okay. Wow. That sounds, overwhelming, exciting, fun, expensive. So who?
Yes, expensive. Yeah. That is the word.
Yeah. So who's normally in charge of paying for all those expenses?
Normally, when it's the traditional wedding, it's your father, it's your family, your uncles, your aunties, basically your dad. So it's normally the girl's side that will cater for the traditional wedding. And when the boy is coming, or your fiancé, he's just gonna come with gifts and you name it. And the gifts they can go from, I don't know, very extraordinary things to just basic things like fruits. But it means something. Okay. Yeah. So your husband can decide to bring a car. He can decide to bring chairs, furniture. Yes.
Oh my God.
He can bring your parents the biggest flat screen they have ever seen in this world, and he can do so much. Like, remember, he's coming to your home, so he's coming with this intent that he wants to impress. Then he's gonna bring vegetables and fruits and everything. Basically, let me say, what your parents, depending on how pompous the traditional wedding is, some people literally get back their money.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because he's bringing food. He brings cooking oil. Yes, he will bring that.
So, like, bring a moving truck with all this stuff in it because.
Yes. Then cows, poultry, you name it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the gifts are mainly for the parents of the bride.
Yes. Yeah, like thanking her and everything. Yeah. So these are discussions that have already happened prior to. So they're like, okay, 8 cows and stuff like that, whatever number of cows and stuff like that. Yeah. And it's something that 9 out of 10 times, you as the girl, you don't have control.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
What about the bride and groom's attire for the wedding?
I feel like most times it's a thing about you just coordinating with your fiancé and stuff like that, and then see how you guys can get up. Or if your parents want to accommodate it well and good and stuff like that. But it's a thing about making sure like you're just smart. We have certain specific traditional wares for specific tribes. So if I'm getting married in the West, if I'm marrying a Western man from the Western part of the country, I'm going to dress a certain way when I'm coming out of the house to welcome him, do the traditional wedding, to show respect to his culture, to his people who have traveled all the way from the other side of the country to come and visit my family and ask for my hand in marriage. So, that's how it normally works. Yeah.
Wow. And so is there a period of time that you should be engaged? Like, there are some countries where you're engaged for like only 30 days and then you're expected to just get married after the 30 days.
So for us, I don't know about it, but I will speak for my family. We tend to make sure, so there's something it's called like the first visit. So African parents are very different. And I don't know, Dali, if you ask your kids if they are dating and stuff like that. For us, they're not going to ask you if you're even dating. They're just going to be like, when are you getting married? And stuff like that. They're very direct. Yeah, they're like, oh my God, don't do that. When your husband comes, and they're not concerned about that. So when the first visit happens, you go home and then that's when you introduce. It's basically a small introduction with your family, just the boy's family and everything, and then that's how you guys get to know each other and stuff like that. So when the first visit happens, you guys talk over everything and stuff like that. And yeah, that's how you get to know each other. So when the first visit happens, then all the other things then start happening just accordingly. Yeah.
So then when you bring this person to your family, that means you're pretty serious.
Yes, very, very serious. You're not introducing them to John this week and then Mark next week. No, my mom is not yet over my boyfriend of campus who I introduced her to. And yet he got married.
Oh my God.
She's not over it. So that is the thing about us. So it's a very serious thing, very serious thing.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's so interesting. So what happens in the church wedding, and is a church wedding something that became a thing because of the colonization of the country?
Yes, it's definitely a thing because of the colonization, and I'm not certain about the laws regarding that, but the state really does stand with that. If you have a church wedding, it gives you, I don't know how to say, it's very hard for your husband to marry another woman, but traditional weddings are very polygamous.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Is that common though? Like maybe the rule is that you can have polygamy, but it's not practiced, or is it really practiced?
It is very much practiced, yeah.
Oh, wow. So how many wives can a man have?
As many as he can handle, basically.
Wow.
Yes. Nobody's gonna hold him hostage, and nobody really does care if he's really taking care of them, because the state really doesn't. It's like, you took yourself there, you deal with that matter. But in terms of so that's why after the first visit is done, we speak about, hey, especially I'm thinking about my mom. You're not gonna bring her man and then say, oh, we're gonna be engaged for like 6 years. She's like, no. So that day we set the introduction date and then the wedding date. And everything is already finalized during the first visit. And now people start planning WhatsApp groups. Joy, when's you name it? And then like, okay, guys, sometimes I don't know about you guys, but contributing for people's weddings is a big thing here.
Okay.
It is a very big thing. And sometimes people take offense because I say, oh, Dali's my friend, and I know Dali, she has a good job. I think she'll give me like 1 million. Yeah, I know. She'll give me some good money. And then you get surprised, Dali doesn't have that money. Oh, she has other things going on. And she's like, sorry, guys, I can only give you these or stuff like that. Oh, even the person doesn't contribute. So once the dates have been finalized, the next thing is form all these WhatsApp groups and then start telling people, this is what's going to happen and stuff like that. But the church weddings, there's a lot of contribution that happens for it. The boy's family comes together with the girl's family. Most times the church wedding is catered for by the boy's family.
Okay. Wow, that's incredible that you find out until then with the contributions that your friend was bluffing about how much they had.
Yes. Oh, how much
That's
they really care about you.
That's embarrassing too. You know?
Yes, yes,
Oh,
yes.
So I don't know that in Nicaragua we have that type of contribution at that level, but it is common for them to choose like a kind of like a godfather, you know, like somebody like a couple that's married that has been together for a long time to be like the mentors or like the support system for the new couple. I know that in Mexico, it is very common to have what they call padrinos and madrinas. And they are like, if you are selected to be like, they'll have like la madrina of the cake, la madrina or el padrino of the dress. So they're assigned, like that's what they're going to pay for pretty much. So yeah, as far as Nicaraguan, so we don't have that so much. It's more like the couples, they just get showered with gifts the day of the wedding. Yeah, that's really cool.
Oh,
So yeah, so then the church wedding is what stops the polygamy. Like you're pretty much telling, you're committing to, you're not going to engage in polygamy. This is like just a you and me.
yes.
So
yes.
I'm assuming that's becoming a lot more popular.
It is, and most gals want that because they maybe like, it's something that maybe in the event that divorce happens, as the woman, you kind of have the upper hand because women as a minority group here, a very, very minority group. It's crazy if something happened, depending on how your family thinks, your mom will not be given the upper hand if your father passes on. It's crazy. It's in this day and age that such things still happen and everything will change. So women are the minority group. So imagine I was married to this man and we just had a traditional wedding. Yes, he wasn't polygamous, but he passes on. I'm literally left with nothing. Sometimes, depending on how my relatives think or his family, if they're the kind, come and take, they can literally leave you with nothing.
Wow.
But yeah, in terms of like going to church, now that's when you can then hire a lawyer, a divorce lawyer or whatever sort of lawyer in place to fight for you, and the court can rule in your favor sometimes. Yeah.
That's tough though, because so many people must not have the ability to afford a lawyer to
yes,
right? So then you end up with nothing. So then women don't have any legal rights to ownership of any of the property that the husband might leave behind, whether he earned that property or those assets before or during the wedding, during the marriage. Is that right?
Yes, I'm not so certain about the law and how it supports that, but most times from what I know, if your husband hasn't put certain things in your name, they can't be taken away.
Is it looked down upon if a man does put some things in his wife's name?
No, it's actually not. And I think it's the right thing to do for me personally, knowing how a family is, the craziness that we see in these movies and around the world, it really does happen. Yeah. So I feel like it's the right thing to do. And that's why women nowadays want to go to church, get their last names changed to their husband's names. And so like when you're buying land, I'm like Mr. and Mrs. and stuff like that. So I feel like we are now woke in that area. We're like, no, you're not gonna leave us with anything because I've seen so many scenarios. I think even right now there must be one happening where a woman is left with nothing in the event that her husband dies, or he decides to go with another woman. And yeah.
Wow. What about children? Are you expected to have children right away after getting married?
Yes. From what society is like, after the marriage, the next thing, because remember, they have started asking me already, oh, Joy, when are you getting married? And then the next thing, they're like, okay, when are you having kids? And then they'll be like, is it a girl? When are you having a boy? Basically, they are in your business 411, and you kind of cannot do anything about it, but just be like, okay, let's wait and see. But just as I said, especially our generation, millennials, people are changing. People don't want to have those questions. People now talk about it and then be like, speak about it. And now we have those discussions about the African aunties who are always asking you about when your child is coming and stuff like that, because things like infertility are not, let's say, it's not something for people abroad. People face it here and sometimes bring up those questions, and it can hurt someone, especially if they're going through a crisis. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Wow, that's a lot of pressure. I
It's
mean,
so much.
yeah, I mean,
It's
it
a
almost
lot.
seems like from the meeting the guy all the way through.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it happens in every single country, but in different ways, and some are more intense,
Mm,
right? Because I know
yes.
I waited like 7.5 years to have a child with my husband.
Wow.
I felt like I had to test him out through different scenarios. I was like, I don't know. I mean, you seem like you would be a good dad, but we got to go through some life challenges before I decide to have a child with you.
Wow, that is serious, darling.
Well, I'm the eldest of six. And
Okay.
my mom ended up being single. My father left when I was.
Oh, yeah.
So I saw what happens. And he was not a good man too. So I was very picky with like, okay, I'm not gonna have a child with just me. And then if I even have a child, because actually I didn't want children because the responsibility scared me. And then when I decided, I was like, okay, I think he's okay. And I would also tell him like, hey, you got to test me out too, because I actually don't think I would be a good mother. I think I'm too practical. Like,
Yes.
I thought I wasn't gonna have the patience. But as it turns out, I have more patience than I ever imagined.
Oh my God, I'm just trying to think 7 years here. Stories have already started moving around. Like two things, she's either barren or the husband has something. The
Yeah.
man is gonna get someone else. Oh my God, your mother is praying. She's like at the prayer mountain with her friends. They are fasting. It's a serious thing. That is 7 years.
Yeah, I know. And
Yeah.
I feel like I'm one of the rare Latinas because my mother never once asked, are you going to have a child? She was
Wow.
like, live your best life.
That is so cool. Yeah, but for us, African, I know that it's just a thing across the board, whether you're in Uganda, whether you're in Kenya, as long as you're African, the next big thing after getting married is like, okay, so where are the kids? But now with our generation, the Gen Zs and everything, people are having, I hear some of my friends who don't want to have kids, and mindsets are changing. And like, okay, it's not all about this. What if I want to do different things with my life? Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh, Joy, it's almost 4 and I have so many more
I know.
questions. Because we focus more like on the family aspect. I think we should do
Okay.
2 and maybe a 3 because
Yeah, if you have, I can answer a bit short ones if you have, and then yeah.
yeah, okay.
We
Just
can, yeah.
before we wrap it up, if you would share with us maybe 1 or 2 or 3 things that you would want people to know about your culture or your country.
So I'm very certain everyone has been seeing the news about our country moving around. And I will say we are more than the news. And just like everyone else in the world is striving for different things and opportunities, Ugandans are too. And you'll meet us around the world. I know we kind of lot in Canada. there's a whole association about that. And every day my friends are leaving the country to go to the US so one thing I would say, our culture is very diverse and we are very accommodative. And there's a reason we are called the Pearl of Africa. So come and experience us. Yes, you can Google it. We are literally called the Pearl of Africa. It's such a beautiful country, very good weather in terms like that. But just like everyone is fighting for different opportunities, we are all seeking for them. And I just hope the world can see us, remove the glasses and just see us for our work ethic and the things that we can do rather than what the news portrays and what you've heard. Every time someone says Uganda, people Google and they only look at our president who passed on, who was so bad, Idi Amin. And they're like, oh my God, what are you guys going to do? There must be like a war right now, blah, blah, blah. No, come and experience the country for yourself and then see. But just like everyone else, we are hustling for the same things. Yeah, that's why I'm a virtual assistant looking for clients in the US.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that I met you. I'm so glad for that day that you came into Clubhouse and introduced yourself because
Yes.
yes, I feel like I've gained a wonderful new friend and you make me want to go to Uganda and visit your country. I really
Yeah.
want to go. Yeah.
Yes. And you can come on anytime. We're very accommodative and stuff like that. And yeah, come and see real life here as well.
Yeah. Bring my kids because I want them. It's so important for me to raise kids that don't have those blinders because we hear so many things that are so ignorant or so just ridiculous. And the fact that people take that to heart instead of looking for answers and seeing people for who they are first. Because one of the things that you said is you don't want people to see your Ugandanness first.
Yes.
I completely understand that. You know, as Latinos, we too, some people, when I tell them I have a master's, they're like, oh, you have a master's. Like I'm supposed to or something. Yeah, so I understand that. Well, thank you so much. We definitely need to do a part 2.
Yes, you can tell me when.
This was really fun. And yeah, well, I guess that wraps it up, right?
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Dali. Thank you.
Oh, wait, before we go, we must
Yes.
share, Joy, how people can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so people can get a hold of me through my Instagram, VachoJoyVJ. I'm gonna do the show notes so you'll find them in the show notes and everything. So I stay active on Instagram, so you can ping me. And if you want to book a discovery call for any of my virtual assistant services, you can just click the link in my bio, take a look at my website and all those things. And if you're Dali's friend, talk to her and she can tell you how nice I am.
Definitely. Even if you don't know, just send me a DM at DaliTalks. If you want to ask me some questions, you know, about how I work with Joy, because some people do. They're like, so what does she do for you? You know, how good is she? You know, one of my favorite things is your style of writing, because I struggle with that. So you know more than I do. All right.
Yes.
Joy, thank you once again. And I guess we'll see when we do part 2.
Yes. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye. I hope that you really enjoyed that conversation. I certainly learned a lot. And like I said, we're going to have a part 2, possibly a part 3. But if you want to reach out to Joy, you can check her out on Instagram. Her handle is virtual joy, V as in Victor, J. Or you can, you know, look at the show notes below. Her links are going to be there. She's really an amazing person. She's very professional and friendly at the same time. And hit her up about questions about Uganda too. Just, you know, be respectful. And let's keep learning, because we really need to educate our children and ourselves about different cultures and, you know, stop believing those stereotypes that continue to contribute to the way that we treat people sometimes. And also just so that we don't embarrass ourselves by saying something offensive or assuming something that's not true, and all that stuff. So thanks again for listening to the DaliTalks podcast. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening. And we'll have another episode. If you are new, we have one every single Wednesday. It publishes by noon Eastern. And if you want to join the newsletter to be notified about each episode, go to DaliTalks.com. That pop-up will come up, and get that free lead generator that I'm giving away, and you'll be added to the newsletter. All right, have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.
Hey, did you like that episode? If you did, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you may be listening and write a review. If you want more tips or some behind-the-scenes videos, make sure to follow my mom at DaliTalks on Instagram. You can turn on notifications for her posts and stories as well. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. See you next time.